Imagine a healthy Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb running behind an improved Texans offensive line. Now wake up. Your dream is your reality now. Today's pod is all about Nick Chubb. What value does the vet add to the Texans' backfield? And does his arrival mean the departure of a former fan favorite?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's podcast and Texans Talk is for Texan fans all around. And who better to talk Texans ball with than me, your Locked On Texans host, Texans football analyst, and credential media member, John Hickman. Today's pod is all about Nick Chubb. What does his potential in Houston look like if fully healthy? He's been working out all offseason. There's a video going viral right now. It's been going viral for the last couple of months of him squatting 400 pounds. But if he's healthy, there's value there. And is there value in adding a 29-year-old running back whose best days are behind him? Does Houston needs for him to be the Nick Chubb or just a complimentary piece? I'll close out the show with a quick conversation about Damon Arnette. He says he's always been a dog, but now he's more professional. Houston gave Arnette a workout ahead of mandatory minicamp. Can the former first rounder give Houston reliable cornerback depth? Thank you to all of our first-time listeners and viewers. Shout out to our everydayers from the Himalayas. Thank you for coming back and continuing to make Locked On Texans a part of your everyday routine and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Also, we're going to dive into, is there a message that DeMeco Ryans is sending out to his locker room and the team? But a couple of weeks ago, guys, Houston worked out J.K. Dobbins, could not reach an agreement due to contractual differences. Whatever the number range was for the Houston, whatever they wanted to stay at in terms of, a year to salary, they were not able to reach a deal. Not sure, but now we fast forward to Monday. Houston and Nick Chubb agreed to a 1-year deal, a contract that I think will be heavily incentivized. We'll probably see something close to a low-end version of the Ricky Williams and Saints contract from 1999, where you got to hit this mark, you got to hit this mark, and every mark you hit, you get 50,000 here, you get 75,000 here. It won't be as extreme, of course, as Ricky Williams, who was one of the top running backs at the time, but I think we'll see something along those lines. Houston to give themselves some protection, and Nick Chubb will have to earn his salary, earn his money. But looking at Nick Chubb, guys, in his prime from 2018 to 2023, over 6,500 rushing yards, nearly 50 rushing TDs, 5.3 yards per carry average, four-time Pro Bowler, one-time All-Pro first team. Houston wanted to make their running back situation a little bit better. They wanted to upgrade that running back situation. And credit to my guy, Pastor Chris from Twitter, who mentioned, hey, maybe guys want to come to Houston now. Back-to-back division champs. DeMeco Ryans is a player coach, great coach, one of the better young coaches in the NFL. This is a very favorable situation, and I think it's a little bit more favorable to some of those older guys who are trying to get on the team where they can come in, be the vet of, be the voice of reason type of vet, be the vet that can still produce, be a productive player, also be a vet that Houston can actually benefit from on the field. So I believe that's a good point that he made on Twitter. Go hand in hand. Houston wanted to upgrade. Guys want to come to Houston. And what I believe Nick Chubb will bring to the Houston Texans, listen, he's a vet that will fit into the Houston scheme. Let's go back a couple months ago when we heard from Nick Caley for the first time. And then he also kind of reiterated when we heard from him to kick off OTAs. Like, this offensive scheme compared to the last two seasons, it's going to be what the players benefit from, not necessarily what the scheme put out, right? And so you look at Nick Chubb coming in here, right? Excelled in both wide zone and power gap schemes. It's going to be a good fit for whatever the Houston Texans play call is. Like, he's been able to excel in both offensive type of schemes. Freddie Kitchens in that offense, heavy gap blocking schemes. Understand Kevin Stefanski, wide zone run scheme. He's an extremely versatile fit for the Houston Texans offense. And while that's the best part, the bonus, you guys are going to love this. And this is where the reservations for Woody Marks comes in. This is where the reservations for Dameon Pierce comes in. And this is not the reservation for Dare Ogunbowale, though he did struggle just a little bit last year. What Dare gives you in terms of a pass blocker, he don't give you in the running game, but he protects quarterbacks very well. Great awareness, great power, great thump whenever he needs to put a hat on somebody. So that's also like one of the bigger underlying bonus of adding a player like Nick Chubb to this offense, to that running back unit. We talk about having a trust of your coaches out there on the field to be on the field on passing downs. That's Chubb. That's always been Chubb. And Houston is banking on him to get past those injury woes, which he was able to overcome last season and continue to be the Nick Chubb. And for an offense that is constantly working to refine blocking assignments and protection, Nick Chubb might not be the receiving threat on third downs. Like we talk about in regards to Woody Marks and what the rookie can bring to this Texans offense whenever he gets an opportunity. He has been labeled as the receiving threat, the receiving back. Look what he can possibly be for the Houston Texans on third down. And while that's great, and while Nick Chubb doesn't necessarily, bring you the receiving threat of a third down back, you can trust him out there on the field. You can trust him to be able to pick up inside pressure. You can trust him to be able to be out there and have the awareness to know where he needs to be to give his quarterback an additional second or two to pick up that body. So again, yeah, he may not be that receiving threat on third down, but he is for damn sure the blocking threat on any down when he's on the field and being able to protect the quarterback. You also just look at Chubb he's one of two things when healthy for the Texans. He's either the best backup running back in the NFL, if he's healthy for 15, 16 games. And to be fair, let's say between 12 to 15 games. If he's healthy, he could very well be the best reserve backup in the NFL at running back. Or a solid insurance plan for Joe Mixon. Now, remember, Aaron Wilson reported Joe Mixon wasn't a walking boot, said it was nothing serious, but he can be both of those things. Either way, I think there is a message to the locker room when you add a player of Nick Chubb's caliber. Listen, Nick Chubb was, before the injuries, maybe about 2 or 3 seasons away, maybe more so 3 seasons away, to be fair and be realistic, from hitting 10,000. Nick Chubb was that dude. Nick Chubb is a player that don't need a lot to succeed. Like, you got some guys, you look at rappers, you got rappers that they need everything to go the right way to even put out a mediocre song. Nick Chubb ain't that type of guy. Just hand me the ball. I'm going to make guys miss. Guys going to bounce off me because I'm an angry runner, but I'm also quick. One of his superpowers is just being decisive with the ball in his hands. Yeah, man, like Nick Chubb, if fully healthy, and he's going to go through the whole competition thing this offseason. But there's a message to the locker room. The Texans are not settling. They are striving to add talent to every unit, and may the best man win. So what does that message mean for guys like Dameon Pierce and Dare Ogunbowale? Stay locked in on today's Locked On Texans podcast. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, I got a birthday coming up, so I've been doing a lot of online shopping. And also entertainment. It's easy to lose track. But guys, that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On NFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code Locked On NFL for half off your first year. Thank you for staying locked in on the Locked On Texans podcast. The vision is clear. Let's run the ball to minimize mistakes. Let's eat underneath. Let's fish out explosive plays because defenses are being kept honest. Let's be physical. Let's hit teams in the mouth. Let's commit to being able to do multiple things at a high level. And this is in regards to scheme balance. So, what does this mean for the other vets in the running back room, specifically Dare Ogunbowale, great special teamer, and Dameon Pierce? First, I am going to say no decision should be made until Houston gets past maybe the halfway point preseason. And here's a good thing for Houston. And I think this was on purpose because they are going to weed out those guys that they may have a good relationship with, they feel great about, but they're going to weed out those guys that are just not ready for this team anymore. They don't have a spot on this team anymore. Houston has 2 joint practices this preseason, period. Detroit going to be fire. Detroit is going to be fun. I almost wish Houston was able to kind of get on some version of the like Hard Knocks to see something like that. But Detroit would be fun. Carolina's going to be fun too. Maybe not as fun as Detroit, but Carolina would be fun. And so this is with the addition of Nick Chubb, this is now, I think, an even more competitive running back room. I am by no means saying Nick Chubb could, compete for RB1, though at their peak, I'm not 100% sure to tell you who I think is the best running back between Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb. And again, this is a perfect situation for both guys. Neither one of those guys have ever had the other in their prime to kind of dial back some of the wear and tear that they've taken on throughout their career. And that's going back to college. If you guys remember, Nick Chubb had to deal with an injury in college that he was able to bounce back from. And then again, between 2018 and 2023, one of the best running backs in the NFL. So the 1-2 punch for the Houston Texans, if 100% healthy on both ends from both players, you're looking at a duo that could very well, by the end of the year, we're looking at the Houston Texans statistical numbers, and we're saying, man, I didn't realize they ran for 4.8 yards per carry. I didn't realize that. And you look at, okay, like Joe Mixon is here. Whenever he's played behind a good offensive line, he's been a 4.2, 4.3 yard per carry type of player. Last year for Nick Chubb, as he was working to get over those injuries, we know that the injury took place at the beginning of 2023, only played in 2 games. In those 2 games, 170 yards, 28 carries, 6.1 yards per carry. Throughout Nick Chubb's career, and by the way, he is still a threat receiving out of the backfield, but throughout Nick Chubb's career, and this is starting with his rookie year, 5.2 yards per attempt, 5 yards per attempt, 5.6 yards per attempt, 5.5 yards per attempt, 5 yards per attempt. And during this stretch, almost 1,000 yards his rookie year, 1,500, 1,100, 1,250, 1,500. Before the injury, 6.1 yards per attempt. Last year, working his way back, 3.3 yards per attempt. And I also want to look at some of the games from last year where we saw a little bit more glimpses and flashes of Nick Chubb's against New Orleans, 11 carries, 50 yards, 4.5 yards per attempt. Against Pittsburgh, 11 carries, 48 yards, 4.4 yards per attempt. Against Kansas City, who has a very good defensive line, and Pittsburgh as well, 9 carries, 41 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. So immediately the message to the locker room is, I got Joe Mixon, who when healthy, and we got a decent offensive line, some guys that can move some bodies and be successful at the second level. And this is one of the things that, looking back on 2024, Kenyon Green, best game against Indianapolis, when he was getting to the second level, Joe Mixon went crazy running behind him. So we got two guys in here now that is going to be able to average 4.3 to 4.7, 4.8, 4.9 yards per carry. That's physical. That's physical football. So for the other guys, what are you bringing to this table? And that's where we get to the message to the locker room, to the running back unit. To bring it back, I don't think Houston should make a move, shouldn't cut a guy. They should go through the full offseason, training camp, preseason. Teams are starting. Teams will be able to start making cuts, I believe, after the second preseason game, where teams, I think they have to cut down to between 8 to 10 players. That's where I would say for Houston, it's important to go ahead and start to look at one of the two, Dare and Dameon Pierce. And I'm going to be completely honest. I see a lot of the trade Dameon Pierce. I don't believe Dameon Pierce has a high trade value. Dameon Pierce had moments last year, and it was very few moments, very seldom moments where we saw him flash off the screen. More so, it was the game against Tennessee to close out the year where he almost ran for 200 yards. But Dameon Pierce gives Houston value in the return game. And for me, guys, I value what Dameon Pierce brings in the return game more than I value Dare Ogunbowale, what he brings as a runner. I think Dameon Pierce is a better runner. Like if I'm stacking up who does what best, I think Dameon Pierce is a better runner. I think Dameon Pierce is more explosive and more impactful in the open field once he gets to the second level. And I think when I look at special teams, and this is where for both of those guys, and I saw the jokes, we can't get rid of Dare. He's our emergency kicker. Houston better find another emergency kicker, because in terms of special teams, I have seen Dameon Pierce make plays for Frank Ross and that special team unit. So again, the beauty of it all is Nick Chubb is on a 1-year deal. We don't know the number yet. I am very curious to see what the number looks like. But Nick Chubb is on a 1-year deal. Nick Caserio and this front office staff, they've added guys to 1-year deals who didn't play a regular season game for the Houston Texans or didn't make it through the first quarter of the season with the Houston Texans. They've traded guys and they didn't make it. So the 1-year deal aspect, it doesn't tie them to Nick Chubb like trading for Joe Mixon and extending him for 3 years. That ties Houston to Nick Chubb, to Joe Mixon for at least another year or so. Nick Chubb could very well come into training camp and not look like himself. And Houston is going to say, hey, thank you. We appreciate it. We're going to go a different route. And that'll be another bonus for the Houston Texans, because essentially around that time, the other 31 teams are going to be doing the same thing to some of their running backs on their roster. So it doesn't tie them to Nick. If Nick comes in and he is completely what the Houston Texans need, because they do need their relief. They need their relief for Joe Mixon. If he will be that, if he's going out there and he's actually looking like Nick Chubb, then Houston will have a great problem on their hands. We got two of these guys. And that great problem will lead them to, and I'm talking about the Houston Texans, will lead the Houston Texans to what's the message right now to the locker room? What have we been sending out? We're going to add talent. We're going to get better. Don't matter at what position. We are going to look at the room. We're going to read the room. We're going to read the unit. We can get some vets here because what we need that vet presence. Okay, we're gonna do that here. We can get a little bit younger here, and younger we can get a little bit more explosive, get a little bit more faster out there. Okay, we can do that. But the message is they're gonna add that talent, man. They're gonna add the talent, and they're gonna get better in the areas that they believe they need to get better. And then you start to play the subtraction game. I don't think Woody Marks is gonna get cut. No, I think they like him a lot, actually. I think Woody Marks is a part of the contingency plan for the running back unit. It comes down to Dameon Pierce and Dare. What is the value for both of those guys? Can you cut one and then bring one back on the practice squad? How does Houston view British Brooks and Gerard Jordan moving forward? All of these things will be taken into account. Who's going to be able to not only be a good special team in terms of being able to return the ball, but who's going to go down there and lay the hat? Who's going to smack somebody? Who's going to have lane discipline while going down to make sure that a 17-yard return don't end up being a 50-yard return because they got out of their lane. They lost lane discipline. This team, this coaching staff is intelligent. They value football. I think in the past, they valued relationships in football and being successful in the NFL. I think they valued it the same, 50-50 split. I don't think that they don't value relationships anymore, but how Houston went out last year, and for a lot of us, we thought that the Houston Texans went out sad in several games. I don't think the relationships matter as much as it did the previous 2 years. This ball club is all about winning games, getting better, and doing it by any means possible. And adding a player like Nick Chubb and his caliber, especially if healthy all the way, you are getting a game changer in so many different facets of the game. That's going to leave some guys out the equation. It's going to the competition for this unit is going to be great, guys. And I think everybody should be excited because it's kind of like the final five for the offensive line, the final unit for the running back group. You're going to have a unit that will be able to balance each other out, relieve each other from the top two aspects, and then you're going to also have a unit where there's trust to be impactful in this area of the game. There's trust for you to be a factor over here for us in this area of the game. So you're going to look at a more whole unit in terms of wholeness. Last year, it was Joe Mixon or it was nothing. Houston can afford that moving forward. Houston Texans also can afford moving into 2025 without making sure that they shore up their cornerback depth. That's very important. It failed them last year in some areas. It failed them the year before in some areas. I think this is a unit that they want to make sure that they give themselves the depth needed. Can Damon Arnette be that player for the Houston Texans? Not sure. We'll dive into that before we close out the show. Thank you guys for making Locked On Texans your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. Training camp is about a month and a half away. We got some mandatory mini camps coming up soon. Moves are being made. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Damon Arnette got a workout with the Houston Texans ahead of mini camp. Damon Arnette said something that I thought was fascinating, and to hear the realness that he had for himself. I'm a dog on the field. I'm more of a professional now than I ever was before. And this was in a conversation he had with Aaron Wilson. Aaron Wilson does a lot of great work for KPRC and everything he does on YouTube. I wasn't a professional before. I was just a dog. I found professionalism and a calm state of mind. I feel like I'm the best version of myself than I've ever been. That's one thing you would love to hear from a player like Damon Arnette, who experienced some of his own off-the-field issues. I don't want to get into that because he's moved past it, and I believe we should, if we're discussing them right now. former first round pick out of Ohio State, came into the league with a lot of expectations. Arnette is 28 years old now. He's been out of the league for a few seasons. And the question is he a good option for the Houston Texans at cornerback 3? And I know Jair Alexander, was released by the Green Bay Packers. And I know a lot of you Texan fans are like, we need to hop on that. We need to hop on that. I feel like Alexander feels he's still a CB1. And Houston has a CB1, probably the best CB1 in the NFL, and a damn good CB2. So I don't know where Alexander would fit, though I do believe if I just said all of this yapping about, hey, Houston believes that they need to add talent and they are not afraid to add talent, what does adding Alexander to this cornerback group looks like? But in terms of Arnette, who Houston gave a workout to, 28 years old now, out of the league for a few years, been in the CFL, not CFL, UFL, playing some for the Roughnecks, I believe. But he's been excuse me, guys. He's been playing football. He's been active. The thing is, there's a different level of competition between the two leagues, and we know that. We understand that. We understand that who you play XFL, excuse me, who you play in that league is not the same receivers you'll go up against in the NFL. And before he was out of the league, this is why it's a concern to me. 13 games, 9 starts, 29 total tackles, 3 pass deflections, 0 interceptions. For all of my PFF grade lovers out there, 35.7, coverage grade 41.7. Like, he was not a good cornerback. He was not. He was not considered a good cornerback in the NFL. Never got a chance to develop into a better version of himself that I'm sure he wanted to be in the NFL because of the off the field issues and his struggles. But he was not a good cornerback. He struggled with technique issues and awareness and coverage. He was always, I'm not going to say always, that's not fair, but he was frequently beat deep. And he was also injury prone and inconsistent. So it's interesting to see how the Houston Texans will go about adding depth to the cornerback unit. No doubt about that. It's very interesting to see because the fact remains is, hey, the cornerback group can be viewed somewhat similar to the running back group. It's just that you can rely on your scheme to protect you if you don't have the names of the running back. Like Woody Marks could have very well been an RB2 this year. And if those guys are moving bodies, Dameon Pierce could be the RB2. If those guys are moving bodies, then your running back should be able to perform. Cornerback, you need to be the scheme is only going to do so much. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter is only going to cause so much pressure. Eventually, if the technique is off, and if the awareness is off, and if you're falling for double moves, sorry to you. So, realistically, Damon Arnette to Houston, if he can come in and be a good special teamer, that's great, but that doesn't solve Houston's issues at cornerback. And this whole show is about the health and depth of the Texans. I don't think he would help Houston. I don't think there's real value there for the Houston Texans. Also considering not sure what type of NFL player he is at this point in his career. Now, I would love to be wrong. I would absolutely love to watch him make a play on a Sunday for the Houston Texans in the NRG. We'll love that. But I'm just only going based off of the history of Arnette, and that history that I'm going based off of has nothing to do with anything off the field. It is strictly on the field, and to give you guys the issues again, he got beat deep a lot. This is also a team last year that want to kind of rebound from that as well, because when you look at Houston's, if there was anything to say about the Houston Texans secondary, they would allow some bigger plays down the field. I don't know if he could add value to that. I really don't. And so for the Houston Texans, shout out to them for giving him a shot, giving him a workout. Again, would love to be wrong. I'm only going based off history. He could have very well gotten better since then, but I don't think he adds value. And I think Houston still needs to keep their eyes open. They need to keep their uh, pocketbook ready to go. Their salary cap, they got a little cushion. There's going to be some guys that will become available after that second preseason week that could come in and have the proven history of being an impactful player or a player that has serviced a team well in a specified role. Arnette won't be that guy. Thank y'all for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to do a few things for me. Like, subscribe, and comment on YouTube. And wherever you listen to your podcast, follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Until the next time we meet, Texan fans across the nation, y'all do me a favor. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the summer. We got more hot Texans takes throughout the year, throughout this offseason period, and we have more rookie diaries coming up as well. Peace.